Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. And after a short break of around 4 or 5 years, I'm back and I'm going to be recording brand new data automation exercises videos. I've also changed the name of my channel to Lazy Data Dev. And by the way, you can check my brand new website at www.lazydatadev.com and link is available in the description. Today's video is going to be a relatively easy one. This one of Kagos datasets. In particular, it's the IMDb top 1000 movies. And I also deliberately have copied the data to a new data sheet and I have inserted some blank rows in order to delete all of them with a single click. So let's head over to the Visual Basic Editor, which we can do either in the Developer tab or also Alt F11 shortcut combination. And I'm gonna insert now a module and start writing a subroutine which I will call delete blank rows. The first thing I like to do anytime I work with a workbook that contains multiple sheets, I like to set a variable for the sheet that I'll be using. So I will call this data ws as worksheet. And since it's a variable, it's an object variable, I will set this to be equal to this workbook dot worksheets data. Then what I would want to do is to identify which is the last non-empty row because we're going to be looping, right? So back to the Visual Basic Editor, I'm going to declare a variable which I'll call last row and it's going to be of data type long. And in order to find it, we can write something like in the data worksheet, we can use the cells property and start from the very last row, rows.count on the first column and use the end property to move upwards and get the row. So if I check now if this is correct, we can use debug.print last row. If I enlarge here my immediate window and click run, it should be 1139th row. So let's see if this is correct. It seems correct. So practically what we did is from the very last row of column 1, where it's like clicking Control up on the keyboard and getting the relevant row. Then since we're going to write a loop, I'm also going to declare a variable I as long, which we will use as counter. And here let's write a loop. We're gonna start the looping from bottom to top. Anytime we delete rows dynamically in VBA, we need to loop backwards. So here I will write for I equals to last row to 2. And we need to decrease the counter. So you can write here step -1, next I. And now the question is how to identify which rows are completely blank. Probably the easiest way to do this is using the count_a function, the native count_a function in Excel. So in the immediate window, we can test this by writing a question mark application.count_a. And if I provide here the last row, which is 1139, it will return 11, meaning that if I select this row, just as we see here in the status bar, we have 11 non-blank cells. So back to the Visual Basic Editor. If I change this to row 1136, which seems empty, it's gonna return 0, right? So it's very easy, simple to write here. If application.count in the data worksheet rows I, if this is 0, then we can go ahead and delete all rows. So we can write something like data worksheet dot rows I dot entire row dot delete, and this will work. But I'd like to show you an alternative way. And what I would want to do is first to check if the cell in column A on the relevant row is blank. If it's not blank, then there's no need to count how many cells are blank, right? Or how many cells are not blank. If it's not blank, then we can simply skip this iteration. And in Python, there is this keyword continue. So those of you who know Python would probably write something like this, like for I in range last row, because that's gonna be the syntax there. If, let's say, cell value is different than an empty string, then continue. Unfortunately, we don't have this available in VBA, but we can easily create the same functionality using a label, and that's what I'm gonna show now. So I'm going to write here if data ws.cells on row I and column A, which is index 1, if it's not empty, then in such case I'd like to go to the next iteration. So I can write here go to next iteration, and just before the end of the loop I will write next iteration column, and this immediately is interpreted as label. So if this condition is met, then anything we write here will be skipped. And now what we can do also is to dynamically identify the last non-empty column of each row. So I'm gonna declare another variable here, which I will call last call. And this time I can use data type integer simply because we only have 16,384 rows, so integer is fine, although even if I used long, it's not a mistake. And we're gonna do very similar to what we did here. It's just that we're going to find the last non-empty column of each row. So here I can write last call will be equal to data ws dot cells, and this time the row will be I, and the column will be columns.count, and we can once again use the end property, but this time navigate to the left, so Excel to left, and get the column, right? So just to test this, I can again write debug.print last call, and to see that it works, I will just write some gibberish here. And if I start clicking F8 to debug, now we have entered here simply because we're on the 1136 row, so this condition was not met, and the VBA editor stepped here. Now it's going to execute this row, and I assume that it's going to return 4 for the last call, simply because this is like going from the very last column and clicking Control left. and getting the index of the column, right? So if I click here F8, it returns 4. So now it's very easy simply to write if last call equals 1, then end if, and here we can write data ws dot rows I dot entire row dot delete. And now let's test this. I'm gonna click run, and I believe we should no longer have any blank rows. Yeah, the only blank row we have is because I added this gibberish here just to test it. If I now delete it and run the process again, we no longer have any blank rows. We have exactly 1000 rows, which is what the IMDb top 1000 dataset from Kaggle had. So that's it for today. If you have any questions, then please drop those in the comments and I'll reply as soon as I can, and I'll see you in the next one.